Go. Take two. So welcome everybody. Can you give me a wave on Zoom just so I know you can hear? Oh, you can hear. That's great. It's good. So just before I forget, there's a little request to anyone who's reading poems tonight on Zoom that you make sure your name is in the bottom corner of the screen. And that's so that when it comes to you, I can highlight you. Because I don't know some of you, I won't be able to tell just from your face. I'll need your name there. So if you could put your name there, that would be great. Thank you very much. That's just a little technical thing. So yeah, welcome to everyone here in the Croydon Buddhist Centre. I don't know if there's anyone here for the first time. Yeah, so big welcome to you. Yeah, if you're here for the first time. And welcome to everyone who's on Zoom. Got quite a lot of people on Zoom. And thanks to Gernam, who's organised this and made this happen. And we've got a very kind of rich, wonderful lineup of poets who are going to read to us very generously. I'm really looking forward to it. So I'm not going to say much more than that, other than, just enjoy yourselves and welcome. And over to you, Gernam.
Thanks very much for such a good set. And I am just very, very pleased that everyone's come along, and just want to thank very much the poets who are giving up their time today. And because we've got quite a few of us to get through, I'm established with a light. Welcome, incredible. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. So, without further ado, I'd like to invite our first poet, who is Rob. Rob Bridson is a mitra and has been with the Croydon Centre for about 4 years. He writes poetry to help him make connections with the Dharma as a way to try and transcend it. So, over to you, Rob. Thank you very much.
You're clapping now. Is it 5 minutes? 5 minutes? Okay. Right, okay. All I'm going to say is that when I signed up to this, I didn't realise I was reading my own poetry, and this was really never intended to be read out to anyone. So this is very personal. So consider me the warm-up act. I think that's probably what we should do. So 10 past, 5 past now, 10 past. Okay. Okay. Refunds at the door. So I've got 4 poems that I was gonna read to you. This first one is the first poem that I ever wrote as an adult. Actually, probably ever wrote, because I don't remember writing any as a child either. So this is called New Year's Fireworks. The valley looks perfect from the garden. A good place to watch the fireworks. Dressed for snow, standing in the dark, I'm lit up by the display. You can feel the pause in the air, like a held breath, the turning point of the year. Confessions have been made and offerings given. I feel a sense of optimism, looking past the long chill of January towards spring. Yes, I feel the New Year's fireworks are right. 10 past yet, nearly. This one's slightly longer. This is called Tracks in the Snow. The sun rose late that day, breaking the tree line on its winter trajectory across the sky, casting long evening shadows. Even then, the clouds were building, a strange pinkness to the sky, a pause in the air as nature stopped to notice. I was reading next to the window when the first snowflakes fell and became heavier. The settling snow lay cold and white, becoming deeper as the morning progressed into afternoon and early evening. My book read, my chores completed, I looked out at the orange streetlight reflecting on the snow. I took out my winter coat and walking boots, found a hat and gloves, set out into the new landscape. The silence was immense, the cold burning my throat, snow crunched underfoot as I walked onto the tree-lined footpath, next to the now silent bypass. Crossing over to the farmland and walking down into the valley, by now lit by a moon set high above me. I walked into the centre of the valley floor with endless virgin snow laid out before me. Turning for home, I saw my tracks leading back. A previous me had made those tracks, a different past identity. I followed those tracks back through time, back home. Really, this is really quick, this one. And I chose this one. It's not a very good one. I chose this one because I think probably quite a few of us will be able to relate to this. It's called Meditation Blues. I sit and itch. I ache and fidget. My back feels tight and my concentration breaks. My mind is on the move and I cannot settle. I'm shriveled up and closed. Still I try. Breathing, I try to relax. Each time I bring my mind back to the breath is a small victory, a restating of my intention to still my mind. Some days are good, some not so good. This one's a bit downbeat. This is the latest poem I've written. Both my parents are in the last stages of their life, so I'm thinking a lot about death at the moment. So this is called The Day I Died. After a short illness, I passed away. My body stopped working that late winter's day, and doctors and nurses, busy with their tests, were unable to fix the heart in my chest. So everyone gathered on a mild spring morning. The clouds had been building, the rain not yet fallen, to pay their respects and see me away to the sound of a song thrush and the call of a jay. So where did I go that day that I died? And where am I now? And who was my guide? My journey's not done, so please don't be sad. Just think of my memory and hope and be glad.
So I forgot to say hello to all the people online. That is better for lighting. So hello everyone on Zoom, and also for folks who some of the readers may know, other people who are reading tonight, and a couple of can't make it unfortunately because they're unwell, they're ill, but they're okay. So just to say that as well, we're not quite 15 people as advertised, but we're mostly almost core up there. So next person is an online person, is Carolyn Drever. Carolyn enjoys writing about the natural world, especially taking note of the little things she observes in the garden and in the streets where she lives. She's better suited to writing prose, but enjoys hearing other people's poetry. So over to you, Carolyn.
Thank you. Can you hear? Can you hear okay? Yes, okay. Thank you for letting me come.
Oh, maybe we're on mute. Okay, we can hear you now, I think.
Is it okay? Thank you for letting me come. It's lovely to be here. I've only got 2 poems, and the first one is called Strings, and it's about family relationships, especially parents when your children are older, and it's slightly different. So this is Strings. Spinning on a single thread that pulls and frees and pulls again, we oscillate. Near, then far, then near again, whichever way we turn, we never meet. We are linked by a filament as thin and bright as light that glows and shrinks and glows again. And we are stuck, revolving. And my next one is, I was in the garden one day last year and I was looking at this daffodil, and I decided to get the field lens out and I looked right down inside it and I saw something interesting. So this is double daffodil. Down here in the grass, the stem of the daffodil seems impossibly long, Reaching up to the stars, it has been bred to reminisce. Up close, the corolla is a wall of petals, alternating white satin, yellow lace, curling down into a slim and claustrophobic pollen chamber. Under the lens, the pollen and the anthers are clearly discernible at the end of the tunnel. At the bottom, where the stamens meet the carpel, a small black beetle sleeps with one antenna raised, saluting the sun. And that's my poems. Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks very much, Karen.
You're welcome.
Next up, we've got Deborah Williams. Deborah Williams is a proofreader and writer who also enjoys telling her short stories and poems in a group of storytellers, believing that some work needs to be read aloud. In 2022, she won first prize in Anxiety UK's inaugural poetry competition with Sitting with Sparrowhawks. Her writing has been published in outlets including Lancashire Life, Winter Solace and Nature Rights publication, and on the Free Flash Fiction website. Deborah's also got a blog that mainly focuses on the natural world of the Merseyside area. Over to you, Deborah. Thank you for being here.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you, Gurnan, for inviting us and organising this event. It's great to be able to deliver some of my work and hear everybody else's. I'm going to stand up and do them really because I just feel happier delivering them like that. So I hope that's okay. So just bear with me while I rearrange the furniture. So you can still hear me okay, I hope, like this. The two short poems, the first one came about because I was in a workshop last summer focusing on the River Mersey, which is where I live. And we were asked to go outside and be inspired by the river and come back and write a poem. And although it was a lovely sunny day, I couldn't see past the dirty, noisy, human-centred environment to find the beauty of the setting. As we sat down to write our poems, the first line from the Teddy Bear's Picnic and the little tune came to me, and I wrote the Anthropocene's Picnic. So, the Anthropocene's Picnic, Pierhead, Liverpool, 13th of August, 2022. If you go down to the waves today for peace and quiet, a mindful, meditative moment, you're sure of a big surprise because the Anthropocene's in town. Roll up, get your synthetic ice creams from the diesel belching vans lined up on the harsh concrete. The heat island effect is strong here. Dodge the darkly speckled, dirty-looking juvenile gulls, bin dipping in the junk food effluents around the benches and steps, the tin cans and plastic bottles, the takeaway cartons and cups, the cigarette butts and wet wipes, and feel ashamed. If you go down to the waves today, you'd better go alone, because the things you want to say, shout, scream, are better off unvoiced. So maybe it's safer to stay at home. And I'm going to lighten the mood for the second one. The second poem was written in response to a photo on Twitter of a carnival horse, a carousel horse called Barry. And instantly I thought of Barry on the Carry. And so another poem was born. Barry on the Carry, up and down and round, daytime's worse, interminable circles, glimpses of distant church spire, schoolyard, car park, coconut shy. At night time, the twinkling lights and stars, aromas of hot dogs and candy floss close around him. Children on his back, clutching the gold-painted pole that skewers him to this never-ending circle. Yet it strangely doesn't hurt, unless he has that dream, the one where he's moving in a linear direction, galloping, straight as an arrow, golden tail streaming out behind him. Up and down and round, another day and night circling past. Then bang, silver sparks flying, people crying out. The carousel grinds to a halt. The music, the ceaseless, unchanging music, stops. But Barry is still moving. In fact, he's running free, down the steps, over the muddy trampled grass, then up, up, up and away. No downs or rounds. He's up amongst the stars and he doesn't look back. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Deborah. That was wonderful. Next up, we've got Berenice Tregenna. I hope I've pronounced your surname correctly.
Yeah, that's right.
I just was also wondering if maybe we do the clapping at the end, because I think it's a bit difficult to know when people are online, and often, you know, we don't want to clap over when people have started reading. So maybe we do the enthusiasm once someone's finished. So I think, yep, we've got you spotlighted. Just checking the sound.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, brilliant.
Brilliant. I'll just read you a little bit about Berenice. Berenice really enjoys writing poems, short stories, articles, and her blog called Berry Tree. Her writing focuses mainly on nature. She's had pieces included in anthologies alongside other writers and belongs to 2 writing groups. She's currently studying online courses in creative writing at the University of Glasgow. Over to you, Berenice.
Hello, it's a great opportunity. Thank you for having me. I like to focus on finding the ordinary in the extraordinary in my poems. And the first 2 are about sort of indoor things, and the last 2 about nature, because as Gernam just said, that I really do like writing about nature. So the first one is called Fragments. Lying on the floor, once whole, now with its ceramic splinters scattered. Ashamed to go, the pattern petaled and swirls, once joined to become disconnected. How many teasers it held. It was a warm hug on a cold day, but it is broken. Mixed in with spilt hot lemon, handle sticking up above a trench of cracked remains, wanting to be picked up and saved from the sour liquid rather than being discarded. So that was about dropping my favourite mug on the floor. So yeah, I was just focusing on an everyday object, because that's what I like to do. The next one, actually, I was asked to do in a workshop. We were focusing on food. So mine's about it's called the watermelon. A green orb melts in a parched mouth, changing from dry sandpaper to a glistening tongue with your watery touch. An oasis in a thirsty desert, the cool, tantalizing feel as it trickles down the throat, dripping off the lips, the seeds tickling the roof of the mouth, quenching, slurping it up until, left with a hard rind, bereft of its hydration, yearning for more as you try to bite off the last bits. So that was about watermelon. So now this is the thing that I like to focus on. This is nature outside, and I like to focus on nature that most people don't notice, like everyday nature in the garden. That's what I write about on my blog. So this is called it's called the dragonfly peg, and it's something I noticed outside. Dragonfly peg. There's something on the washing line, not the usual peg. Peering closer, perched on a tightrope, a beautiful red dragonfly. Big eyes looking sideways, delicate ornate wings wrapped around the body, tail parallel to the line, tiny feet clinging on. Many people don't notice these exquisite creatures. I am able to really see them and revel in this feeling, usually gone as soon as I'm near, but this dragonfly continues to sit as if it knows that it's making my day. So I was particularly pleased to see that. And lastly, this is about, I went to the coast recently. I went to Shingle Beach, and I took a video of the sea going in and out. And so it's about the sea going in and out. And I just got the feeling of it breathing, sort of, I find it very calming experience. And I hope when I read it, you can sort of hear the going in and out of the sea. So breathing sea. I can smell it, the sea, with its salt breath. I can see it, water creeping up, then down, up the shingle, then down again, here and there in a tidal train. I can feel it, flowing around the pebbles, smoothing them. I can taste it frothing and spilling, spraying on my tongue. I can hear it, this constant sea, soothing my ears as it sways back and forth, in and out. The waves are whispering. I can think it, so calming to know the sea will always be breathing. So thank you. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Bernice.
So to save Gernot from introducing himself, I'm going to step in. So Gernot Bubba was a long-listed author in the 2021 Urban Tree Festival Writing Competition and wrote the winning submission for Feeling It, which was an online anthology of nature writing. He's also had a poem published in This Is Our Place, which was a nature writing anthology. He's a storyteller for trees and a member of Out on the Page and Nature Rights, and he increasingly likes to dabble his toe in poetry.
Can you hear me? Is that all good? Great. So got a bit of old and new. Starting off with the world tree, Yggdrasil. I am the pillar holding up the heavens, the axis mundi. My roots binding the worlds beneath, my boughs gather space and time, embracing stars and clouds, earth, sky, dancer. Yet I am more. Fire and water course through my veins. Life shoots forth on and around me, adorned by soft mosses and lichens strange. Gods and goblins attend me. I endure. My words are runes of power, my leaves the pages turned. My fruit is knowledge, birdsong my mind. I am of all things and all things are me, matter calling to matter. I am a ladder to your deepest self. Many realms hang as jewels on my branches. I am the cosmos and your heart. I have seen life after death, the great circle, the dust of my being, fertile and abundant. I am the world tree. I am every tree. So a slight change from that to one of my favorite things. Joy of toast. I have to say also, this was written on a retreat, and toast plays a big part on retreats. Yeasty caramel cinders wafting out at breakfast. Homely, cozy, woolen warm goodness. Friend of the student and midnight feasts. A crunch fest melting into buttery delight. Fruity, nutty, or marmite. Sweet, savory, or both, versatility galore. For the upper crust smothered with posh pate. Avocado, here we come. One of life's unsung heroes. Any hour, any day, give me toast. So the next one is Lullaby. And this was, I never would have written anything like this, but it was written specifically for one of the members of one of the writing groups I'm in, who had a baby recently. So we did a little booklet, which was beautifully made by another member by hand. And this is Lullaby. Sleep, sigh the leaves, softly rustling. Rocking the babe on the boughs, hum and thrum and buzz, waggle the bees. Float and waft, turn and twist, breeze the dandelion heads. Wander and wander through this bower of sweet sap and rich silt. Bloom with scented blossoms bright. Fly and dart with tiny incandescent dragons, gossamer wings a shimmer. Ripple with fields ripening green to gold. Listen to gnarled creaking wise oaks. Gleam and glow with stars twinkling from the past. Remember, you are shaped from space clay. Remember, the joy of leaping up a stream, scales flashing. Remember, to frolic and foam like waves racing to shores unknown. Sleep, little one, for forests and oceans rise in your dappled dreams and salty blood. So the final one, thought I'd try and end with something vaguely Buddhist-y. Here goes. Nothing is wasted, and this was in response to another poem, much better poem, called The Years by Ian Tromp or Manjusara. Nothing is wasted. Even ashes become something. Dancing atoms and molecules move constantly. Transformation, wanting it, not wanting it. It will happen no matter. We kick, we scream, we mourn. Who do we think we are? Earth, life, death. How shall I dance with you? And in this achingly beautiful world, nothing is wasted. Not inconsolable grief, not loss or sorrow, not roaring belly laughs and boundless joy, not grinding work nor poisoned arrows, nor the freshness of spring or autumn's farewell, not summer's blazing glory, nor winter's dark brooding, not one drop of water or lone falling leaf. Even the sharp retort or anger's fire join with the gentle smile and healing touch. The stillness of the hills, the storms of the mind, flights of fancy and rooted depths. Nothing is new. Every moment, the first moment. Scrubbing dishes, making the bed, stirring the soup, step after step. Even falling back, all is rich, full, necessary. Nothing is wasted. Thank you. So is Christine with us online? Ah, yes, there you are. We're just going to spotlight you. Hello. Hey. So we are officially international, I have to say, because Christine is kindly joining us all the way from Innsbruck, Austria. And we weren't sure if the tech was going to work out. So I'm so happy to see you.
Same here.
And you're here, and it's fingers crossed, I won't say anything until it's over. So, Christine Oberauer, born at Candlemas in Vienna. Christine loves, lives, and works in Innsbruck, Austria. She works in an art house cinema and a museum, and is a passionate poetess. She's a board member of I'm probably going to massacre this, Turmbund, a writer society in Innsbruck, and has contributed poems to various anthologies. This includes poetry book, Jares Kreis, book and CD connection 2018, a poem translated and interpreted by people from all over the world in their individual languages, and then woven into a carpet of music and sounds. I hand over to you, Christine.
Thank you, Garnham. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can, thanks.
Grand, okay. First, thank you very much for letting me join. It's a real honor for me to be here. And I do apologize for my voice because I have a bit of a cold, so don't mind me coughing in between, please. I'll try to cough to some other space, not in front of the microphone. My first poem is called Where the Dream Began. Evening's breeze leaves purple fruits in your cradle. In the golden light of day, wind-strong man, you pick red berries, grown on untouched bushes, and peel dreams from the veils of time. Fire flash, nightful day's ecstatic end, light bound we flame earthwards, stars in our hand. Firefly, waves of fire, cheerful sun, star-embedded spark, heart-born flames spread purest love, eternal in the dark. The next one is called Reverie. Cloud of fire, peaceful light, tears of sun, spirit night, mother's son, world's desire, firefly, heaven's choir, guardians bright in the sky, starry run, heaven's nigh. No harvest. Apples fall with their trees in full bloom. Rests fruitless the hillside where our summer ripens. In my basket I carry a year. Huh? Is it okay? Okay. Nocturnal pattern. I wanted to pluck a star off the rotating blue sky, hang it outside your window, sparkling, dancing, laughing. And until you'd open the curtains, I'd throw pebbles at the moon. A moment. Mist cuddles into the meadow. The dark path is wet. It needs no aim. Every now and then, the keeper of the moment opens a door into the waiting land. And I have 3 more. Oh, burn, raise heart and chalice. Wine sweet dreams well up to you. Drink, beloved, drink. The next poem is called The Next. See each other through all the veils, wide-eyed into your word. Hand each other, fate-bound, voiceless stars until the earth overturns. Love each other, jump into others' hearts, draw trails of speech onto unknown skin. And the last poem I'm going to read to you in 2 different languages. I did the poem in German and I handed it over to a few friends who translated it into their mother tongues. A friend of mine translated it into English. And then it traveled around the world and eventually it came back to me in a language that is the language of hope, Esperanto. And I'm going to read it to you in English and Esperanto. Connection. All with all, united in the beginning. All in all, united in being. All for all, united in one. All from all, united in the end. All, we all walk together all the ways of the world. And because this poem was meant to show us how much we are all connected, this is the language that connects us all, because the language has elements from loads of different languages of the world. And it was called by the creator of that language, Esperanto, the language of hope. Connecto, chui kun chui, kuningitai en la comenzo. Chui en chui, kuningitai en la estulo. Chui por chui, kuningitai en unu. Chui bonvolu chui, kuningitai en la fino. Chui, chui, chui. Ni piediras cune, chui vojoj de la mondo. Thank you very much for letting me take part.
Thank you so much, Christine. It's lovely. So next up, we've got Vijaya Gita. We're just going to spotlight you. Vijaya Gita started to write one day over 20 years ago on the day she was told by a surgeon that she might get her vocal cords cut in an op and never sing again. She has been part of a Croydon Buddhist group called Postal Poets and various London-based poetry groups. She has been published in a couple of magazines. She doesn't write as regularly now. Music is her first, middle, and last love. Visual art, her energy, activity, and poetry takes third place these days. Over to you, Vijaya Gita. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Vernon. So firstly, I'm going to read an old poem that is called Lupus, which is the name of an illness and also means wolf. An illness that doctors thought that I had. Lupus. There is a wolf inside. He roams deep in the forests of my body, falls trees and attacks the little animals in it. He has tasted the blood, smelled the heart, bitten into the organs. He has made them his territory, his hunting space, and sometimes brings his marks up into the skin. And the next poem is to do with things of the mountains when I was a child. In August, when the sun is strongest in the mountains, we changed, came to life, didn't feel buried by coal mines. We cleared every corner, the dresser drawer, closets, scrubbed the floors with bleach, whitened the walls. Above all, we made again the mattresses. They had become hardened balls of wool lint, caked coffins, hurting kidneys of those who slept in them for a year. This mattress was a sack of cloth that used to be striped red or blue. Inside was the field, straw for forest, kapok, cotton, mainly wool. The previous day, we had washed the cloth in the basin, soaked the wool, and in the pools of the slop in the spring, it was time to get the fluffing. We placed the lumpy wool in the floor on the side that was paved and well swept. With brooms made the meal of millet and hemp, joy in the street of communal work. Each armed with a rod of ash and hazel, we beat and shook the pile of wool. The rod dipped in and out, cooking turds. Break with a pitcher of water or wine. Let the arms off the repetitive task. The air, thick with dust, made people sneeze and cough. Cunning after cunning, hitting after hitting, the balls of flour are broken, open, spongy. The wool is swollen, and the tuff is loose and flabby. The well-worked wool is placed on the fresh fabric of the mattress, evenly distributed, covered partly, and with a curved needle we sewed. threaded the ribbons, clicked eyelets with the stabs so the wool wouldn't roll when the mattress was moved. The whole village had opened up, fluffed, pricked its secrets, and closed again until next August. The next one is something very recent, actually. So it's just the first time that I kind of tried that. I was in a cemetery next to an old church, and I saw this Ernest Weatherall, age 42. And I wondered what happened to this man, so as you do in cemeteries. So Ernest Weatherall left for Valparaiso, leaving Chaldron in 1865. Did you know you will find the Pacific Ocean? You must have had a venturing heart. In Chile, you took a Quechuan wife. While you went up and down Patagonia, she made you home and children that you kept secret for life. Your bones came back in Surrey, guarded by the 1,000-year church. Everything about you, Ernest, seemed stalwart. Why did you then die so young? And to finish, a poem about a piece of music that I heard in the Royal Albert Hall, a violinist. Her armored prince was that violin, an average-looking instrument, if you ask me. When she held it in her arms, it embodied a mythical being beyond this realm, a beast of yielding pleasures that first swallowed her completely, and then everyone in that hall, each reappearing inside a Dante-like age of gold. Was it his ninth hell? In that trance, I don't know where we went, but in the distance, I saw a higher space above horizons where all sound met, and there was nothing but light. That's it. Thank you very much.
Very much for Gita. That was brilliant. Next up, we have Amra Pushpa. And Amra Pushpa has been writing for her own delectation for many years. Her writing often comes out of meditation and quiet contemplation in city cafes. She's been a Triratna Buddhist order member since 2004 and has lived in South London for many years after moving there from New York. Excerpts from her New York memoirs, New York Fragments, were published in an art journal, the Signal House edition, last year. We're just waiting to highlight you on the screen.
Okay. I can see me highlighted.
Ah, there we go. We can also.
Great.
Great.
Hello, Croydon Buddhist Centre. Great to be back. First poem is called Threads of Love. Cover me in my grandmother's quilt. Let me sit as its adventure of patterns spills across my body. Let my eyes travel along twists of thread, the tautness, the puckering, at the center of each crocheted square. Let my eyes wander along its steady borders, painstakingly knotted at regular intervals. Let me feast on its irregular worlds of color, chosen out of whimsy, design, or perhaps availability of thread. Let me wonder at its looping stitches, staccato stitches, all the little stitches that linked patterns spread wide enough to cover my newly grown body. Let me remember how she labored, wanting only to give me this, while I, in my young darkness, felt lonely and unloved. So the next poem is about the same grandmother who immigrated from Italy to New York, and it's about her home city called Benevento and my visit there many years after she immigrated. And it's called Benevento non è Sorrento, which in English means Benevento is not Sorrento. The streets are not lined with cafes, no one living la dolce vita, just people living the same small lives from beyond and beyond forever. Its hills are sparse and mean, its ancient walls confining. If she hadn't dreamed her dream, this could be my homeland. Her kin live on there still. She's the only one who wandered. Walking through those hills, I sense her stunning courage. The taproot of her race runs deep. The words, the food, the mores. She didn't reach her new land complete, her heart still in her city. From her gray Bronx flat, a glow fell on her homeland. The streets filled with the glories of Rome, the piazzas large and stately. Standing there, I could feel it still, what she fled and what she yearned for. Her voice still echoing in those hills, in my heart and in her city. And the next poem is about a tortoise, and it's called Tortoise Moment. Like Christmas when you were a child, the same dry, exciting sound of unwrapping. Only now you sit in a walled garden in Tuscany, having grown up long ago, but still that same delicious sense of anticipation at the dry, rustling sounds. Your gift emerges, head first, old, wrinkled, mysterious. Then those ponderous short legs and large patterned dome. It moves in a slow, determined straight line, nose hitting strong, dry reeds that bend under steady pressure. You want to hold the moment forever, gather it in your arms. Instead, the adult you creeps softly past, not wanting to scare it. And then a final act of magic. Head, arms, legs pull swiftly inside, leaving a breathing shell house. The next poem is called Brixton Market. Exotic fruit, breadfruit, plantain, coconut, seem to shout out from market stalls, look at me, I'm different. Starch-stiffed African fabrics stand in colorful attention like psychedelic zebras around a watering hole. Coffee fragrances waft out of the Colombian cafe, along with something unknown, pungent and tangy. Perched on a stool, slice of pizza in hand, I gaze as a man with blazing black brush mustache, fingers delicate sari fabrics, as his veiled wife quietly looks on. The outer world sits heavy and dark, while this world feels illumined with color, sound, and smell. It's like passing through a dull pomegranate shell to rich ruby fruit inside. And my last poem is from a favorite cafe. I call it the Railway Cafe, and it has a lot of old vintage signs. So it starts with the sign, "Quiet, please. Avoid annoyance to residents. Keep your engine quiet and take care to avoid smoke and steam." Locust trees dream of quiet from smoke and steam. Between engines roar and sirens scream, an upward glance finds a nest of bare branches waving in their narrow domain of sky. A dull bulb reflected in the window pane rests in a forked branch cradle, burning like a heart, a mind, a life.
Thanks very much, Amra Pushpa. We're now going to have a quick break. So about we come back at 8:10. And before we go into the break, Project Groups is going to have a couple of words for you.
But yeah, just thank you for the show so far. It's really rich and wonderful. And we've got 5 more poets to come after the 10-minute break. But the event is a fundraiser for the Croydon Buddhist Centre. So just wanted to say something about that. So yeah, if in the break or at the end here in the Buddhist Centre, you can go to reception and make a donation if you'd like to. Suggest a donation of £10. It can be more, it can be less, it can be, you can just come for free if you want. And I'll post the link to our donate page on our website on Zoom for those on Zoom in case you'd like to donate. So this year, Croydon Buddhist Centre has been going for 50 years. So if you donate, you'll be helping us go on for another 50 years, teaching the Dharma, teaching Buddhism, sharing the Buddha's teachings with as many people as possible. We're in a really good phase at the moment where we are expanding and lots of people are coming along to the Buddhist Centre. So anything that you give will help support that work. And I was just sort of thinking, in a way, we're helping people to have more poetry in their life, aren't we? In the sense of being more aware and alive, more sensitive, more observant, finding more beauty and more love and more meaning in their lives. That would be a way to see what we're trying to do here. So we're actually trying to allow more and more people to find more and more poetry, more and more beauty and meaning in their life. And we are doing that. I mean, it's definitely, there are more and more people coming along and you can see they're touched by what we do here. They're inspired by what we do here. So yeah, anything you donate will go towards the work of the Buddhist Centre. So thank you very much for that. We'll have a 10-minute break and then, yeah, 5 more poets. How wonderful. See you soon. Yes. Fantastic. Yeah.
So I think just in the interest of keeping to time, we'll start, and hopefully if some of the online people aren't quite back, they'll come back in the next sort of minute or so. So yeah, just another great big thanks to everyone who's read so far, both here and online. And we're going to go on to Val next. So we'll just be spotlighting you. And Val Johnson is an ex-Londoner living by the sea with her 2 doodle dogs in the land of wild wind and scarlet sunsets. Her writing is an essential way of connecting with the deepest parts of herself, if that doesn't sound too pretentious. There is always a balance to be maintained between the beauty that surrounds her and the terrifying events that touch humanity globally. Working with Triratna friends, she is connected with the notion of writing as a spiritual practice that, alongside meditation and the Dharma, keeps her connected to the essence of herself and the world. Over to you, Val.
Thank you. I'm not terrified at all. Just saying. Okay. This one, I have a very great love for Dharmavadana and teams, Wolf at the Door retreats. So quite often I come up with something that I quite like. This is about getting in touch with the words. Reaching deep, feeling in the darkness for the magic and the demons, you might touch your own brave heart. Dig deep in the dirt with your curious mind. You might find treasure. Breathe in its essence, its feral woodland smell. Blow off the dust and see what you've found. You don't need to bring much. Your sack might be empty, but the darkness will fill it, all in good time. A few years ago, when I was 50, I went walking in the Himalayas, and it was one of the loveliest things and one of the bravest things that I've ever done. I had spent quite a number of years being quite ill with I knew not what. It turned out to be fibromyalgia in the end. And this was part of my breaking out of a kind of straitjacket of just being ill. So that's what I did. Anyway, years later, the Himalayas got shaken with a huge earthquake, and earthquakes are in the zeitgeist at the moment. So this is about that moment. Himalaya. Singing, we reached the plateau, the young girls with baskets piled high with pans, and the red-faced walkers weighed down with expectations. We hummed ourselves along winding, stony ways, rhododendron garlanded, and squinted across valleys studded with habitations. We were a chain of insects, little more than specks of dust against the craggy vastness of those implacable mountains. We never dreamed for one mistful moment that any of that eternal mountain might move, might follow us along those pathways. And yet it moved. One unsuspecting dream-filled dawn, it heaved itself to life like a giant bear, arousing itself from its winter sleep, shaking all traces of humanity from its granite sides. One great continuous tremor followed another, until at last it settled itself to wait. My sadness searches for the singing girls and the stillness of the mountain men who steered us safely through the rocky forever. My heart whispers thanks and wishes you peace in the land that you loved, that claimed you. So on February the 4th, I went to a Wolf at the Door retreat in London. And this little piece, which is a work in progress really, came out of that. And the earthquake in Turkey hadn't happened at that point. So this was about, it was to do with thinking about being here and someone else being there. It was like the here and the there of everything. Somewhere in this moment, gentle rain caresses parched leaves and hardened ground. Somewhere in this moment, someone hides from a hail of dust and stone, fearful they might lose the ones they love. Here, in this moment, while I stand with my outstretched arms saying, wash me, let me drink you in, let me feel the subtle rhythms of spring flow through my blood. Somewhere in this moment, someone weeps in fear that their world is broken. So I do a lot of walking by the sea, as you can imagine, with my dogs, usually. And we get lots and lots of weather. This is some of it. I wrote this during lockdown. It's called Wave Watching, a Lockdown Moment. A sharp wind whips up white surf on wave tops that crash on the wet black skin of the rocks that lie flat as sun-basking seals, and chatter through the pebbles as the sucking sea draws back into itself, ready to rise again, to crash again. Protected from the squall, I sit in a sheltered cove, my face to the setting September sun, and I watch and listen and wait. And finally, Gurnam introduced me to some lovely people called Nature Rights. Had a sudden COVID moment in the brain. And we did a workshop and they put together this absolutely gorgeous little book, beautifully illustrated by one of the people involved. This is called Winter. There's no greater stillness than a winter morning. I open the door with a huff of swollen wood. Under my feet, the ground is frozen and the cold floods silently upwards through my body. In the frost gleaming bay tree, a quarrel of sparrows fluff and peck and push, then flurry away over the fence to a place without a human presence. Sometimes I feel like flying off when I find people in my quiet places. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Val, beautiful as always. So next up is Chris, who's actually here. And Chris Arning is a writer, performance poet, and spoken word artist. He's a former winner of the Hammer and Tongue Slam competition and has performed his work at Poetry Unplugged, Bang Said the Gun, Draw Dance, Floetry, Imaginary Millions, and Farrago Slam, Stage Flight, Celine Salon, Ruffler Club, Words and Verses at Kindred, Monday Bites, Sanga Soiree. I think you put this list to make it a tongue twister for me. Sanga Soiree and the Bowery Poetry Club, NYC. He has recorded 20 Shakespeare sonnets for an audiobook and had his haiku published in the Triratna publication Uthona. He has a one-man Zoom show called State of Grace and plans to release a 3-track spoken word album to music entitled The Piano EP in 2023. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You can hear me online. Absolute pleasure to be here amongst friends like Gurnam and Val and Namavardna and lovely people that I've met here today. Amazing poetry. I'd just like to recite 3 poems that I've wrote. They were all written during lockdown, probably from about May till July. And all of them are very surprising. And it's been described meditation, big part of my practice, and seem to like have a different poetic voice that comes through. I wasn't doing any of these slams, but yeah, it's very different poetry. This one's called Le Ver du Jour. So it was inspired by a night early in lockdown where I remember, if you might remember, all the planes stopped, a lot of the car noise stopped, and this bird song started to sort of emerge into our lives. And also there's an amazing opera by Maurice Lavelle called Chloe and Daphne, and one of the final movements is called Le Ver du Jour, which is beautiful. So anyway, Le Ver du Jour. At 3 o'clock this morn came through birdsong outside my window, of enthusiasm, of relish imbibed, in joyful euphonies inscribed these noble truths of freedom. At 4 a.m. this morn I find, amidst this newly carless, jetless, but still feckless time, resounding with life and rhyme, a palpable avian wisdom. At 4:30 in reverie, bulletins of solidarity, from tiny beaks I'll never see, to us cooped up and caged away, another drudging cloistered day, embalmed in our idiocy, encouraged by their warbles, called on by these birds to prey, to adjust to this new normal. At just past 5 a.m. this morn, trilling tweets and twitters, mockingbirds or nightingales call, a finch I've never heard before. Salvos of extraordinary blast a clearing through this urban sprawl. At 5:30 this morning heard starlings, sparrows and jays, clarion calling in times absurd, frolicking in meadows of praise. Bidding us stop our plumage preen and come from menagerie to retreat. Sweet silverlings in soundless world, like wake-up calls, their songs unfurl. It's 8 a.m. I missed my gong, 3 hours late. The time was wrong. Whiffs of dreams of darling songs. Now awake in bed, whereupon the conclave had adjourned. The sweet glade had gone. Thank you. Okay, so the second poem is called Some Sort of Scansion. And it's the premise is one poem teaching another poem to meditate. Okay. So scan yourself. Upon awakening, scan yourself. Relax into your unstressed syllables and celebrate them for the space they give to those around them to live in their rhythm. Plumb your resonances for your truest cadence and those fugues that refuse to be cast away. In their gentle nooks abide, then fathom further down, burrow where a poem kernel hides that they call the heart. Marvel at its artless fertilities, drink deeply in its fondest parts. Scan your body's fleshy syntax, gently noting its soft diacritics. Relish its lumpen unevenness, be gleeful never to measure up. Yes, scan yourself from head to metrical feet, for the iams, the trochees, for the dactyls, the spondies, these impurities that made you, these pullulating and teeming metabolisms of fate. What becomes you today? Some days you'll be elegy, some days you'll be Sestina, some days you'll be Villanelle, some days you'll be tersa rima, and some days just blank verse. So scan yourself, possess yourself, recite yourself, resolve yourself into sestets, then pour over yourself and do a volta. Then step out of soliloquy, be apostrophe to the world, arise, your stanzas complete, and just let the words come. Okay. So the final poem, I guess it as I picked it up. Sorry, it doesn't need to be a perfect recording. It's a very imperfect recording. It's fine. The final poem is just dedicated to anyone that's trying to do something important and difficult creatively. It's called So Push Through. So just push through and redeclare your allegiance to determination, to those days of grit, of a progress measured out in inches. Push through those predictable vilifications of your art that tend to ring out whenever you are being most true. Push through those straits of self-sabotage against resistance and the ballast of your past, echoing in the contempt of those voices, that desperate resistance who cries you barely hear when it's floundering in your slipstream. Push through the purgatory of self-doubt, through limbos of prevarication, cloying magmas of unworthiness. Let's run the gauntlets of self-hate and stave off shame's embrace. Push through and reclaim those fondnesses you'd feared would never be part of your legacy. Push through to imagination's homecoming, through to fertile fields of you, to today's Elysiums of gladness. Frolic in the beatitudes of this life, where the gods kiss every moment. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Inspiring. And next we have Dharma Vardhana, who's also going to be here in person. Dharma Vardhana's poems and short stories have appeared in many different magazines, including Ambit, The North, Under the Radar, and Litro. In 2020, he won third prize in the Lord Whiskey Animal Sanctuary Poetry Competition, which has nothing to do with whiskey and everything to do with animal welfare. He is poetry editor of the Triratna Arts magazine, Uthona, and for the past 9 years has helped facilitate Wolf at the Door Buddhist-inspired creative writing workshops. He lives in West London and can occasionally be spotted at the West London Buddhist Centre, and is also a big reason why we are here today, because very much inspired by the work that he's done and other events in the past that I've been part of. So thank you, Dharma Vardhana. Over to you.
Thanks, Gordon. It's just great to take part in an event like this, and I'm glad I'm glad I'm here and helped in any way. I'm going to start with a nasty little poem. It's called The Duke of Pain. The Duke of Pain rides up the hill and rides his troops back down again. He tips his ostrich feather hat and wears his grin of high disdain. His handsome costumes trimmed with gold. The more we hate, the more he'll gain. So this Lord Whiskey Animal Sanctuary competition, I was very glad to take part in it because I, like a lot of us, very concerned about animal suffering. And this one is about whales. It's called When the Whales Left. In all the world's oceans, the whales departed. They turned and went down all at once, all of them. No one knew where. Diving so deep, no other creature, none of our machines could follow. Silently, these giants, disturbing nothing, opened the waters below them with their gentle power, leaving wakes of bright bubbles that rose and spread in all directions, great heads guiding. Every species, bulls, cows, calves, leaving like sinking cathedrals, water and sunlessness closing around them. We reached out, tried to track them with our sonars,
but they dove deeper than anyone knew they could, than anyone knew it was possible to dive, out of human knowledge, out of light, out of the world. Well, this one, it's interesting. There's somebody here from Austria, because I brought this along. It's a magazine, Austrian magazine called Poetry Salzburg Review. It's quite a nice little magazine, and I managed to get a poem in it last year. A little bit different in tone from the previous two. This one's called Melody Through the Wall. Music has put the impossible in my head, in my heart, an electric winding up from my belly to my fingers on the glass. It's not something in the rooms opposite with their lamp cast shadows, not in the flickering script of hotel signs, sparked rain or angry cars, whatever their smooth leather. Not here in this room with its neat bed and messed ashtray, nor the mirror. It wasn't in those eyes I tried to console. I don't think it's in any face, even the ones with that sharp sweeping curve or fine tough mouth. If I gave myself up to it, unwrapping, untying as I ran through the street, it still wouldn't be there, inside or out. But those cadences spilled fast and slow, suddenly beautiful for no reason, bring it almost in reach, as the click of the door does, your hand on my cheek, and the rush of you pouring me wine. This one, I go and visit my mum quite often up in, where she lives in Lincoln, and I was up there. My dad died in 2008. I was up there a few years ago and just lying awake in bed, and this poem just came into my head. It doesn't often happen like that, but this one did. And it's called The Moon Above Your Parents' Garden. She is with them in their breathing, and they live by her light. For as long as she can, she will hold them, but it will not always be like this. Turn now as she releases you from this silvered lawn and the mirror roses, and see the house for what it is. Sleep where there is not a single sound to disturb you yet. They have kept aside a room for you. Rise on her crystal path. Let her sing you back into your own story. And I'll just finish with this one, which is based on a real experience in a hospital. It's called Investigation. I don't feel a thing as they feed their snaking scope through my anus and up. Then I'm watching on a monitor a Jules Verne adventure through my guts. We follow pink, ribbed, cream-slung tunnels, but it's dark ahead. No fluorescent gems, electric fireballs, or golden algae. No pet duck, mad count, dimetrodons, toppled gods, volcanic vents, or vast internal seas. No dead explorers pointing anywhere, nor any shell-like sacrificial altar bowls. No giant salamanders with extreme vermilion tongues, and no lost city of Atlantis. Thank you.
So it gives me great pleasure to introduce Glitter Mouse, who is one of our two headlining acts today. Annabeth Glitter Mouse Autumn, since placing first in the Kingston Young Poets Award in 1989, Glittermouse has continued to entertain and delight with her ability to hold a myriad of weighty topics in lightness and ease. Her broad and lyrical use of language is as comfortable to skip along to at a rhythmic pace as it is to flow into free verse, and her fluid style doesn't flinch from spinning out a satisfying rhyme whilst painting a picture of universal human truth. She lives in the community at the Buddhist Women's Retreat Centre in Taraloka. Over to you, Annabeth.
Thank you, Gernam. It's very lovely to be here, and thank you for having me. I'm going to start with a piece called Poetry Night, because that seems appropriate. Every month you stand naked before me, and time again unashamedly bear every inch of what it is to be human. We gather to heal, to breathe long, deep breaths of the relief of being allowed for 2 sweet hours to peel back the membrane of pretense and open our wounds to the fresh air, open our inner worlds. We witness, honor, validify. From the tiny bruise to the bloody gash, from the small injustice to the whole earth shattering around our desperate ears. Those ears who long to hear cried out in the dark night that we are not alone. I hear you. I see your strength, born from your vulnerabilities, that you will not simply wrap up and box away. I hear you as your syllables trip out one by one and trickle down through those of others into a pool of meaning at my own heart center. And I know those ripples. Your ripples join her ripples, join his ripples, join my own. I believe in you. I believe in us. This swelling of honest connection that washes away the detritus of a world bent on greed, hatred, and delusion. On a weekday night in a UK town, we take up arms, sharpen the truth of our own raw battles, and we will rise. Each perfect warrior, subtly tuned to the frequency of their own healing. Listen to that symphony. We're beautiful, and we're changing the world. Words are jet fuel. They burn with a passion. They propel us beyond the articulate and shoot us out into pure understanding. Come with me beyond the oppression of all we are told we should be. Explode my sentences and ride the shockwaves far past the atmosphere of our timid society. Take my paragraphs, ignite them with your own truths, and meet me above the stratosphere of our imagined separation. Dance with me in that clear blue nothing. Delight in our sparkling differences and let our consciousness mingle until we know what it is to be one another. Sing with me until we know we have never been separate at all. And this is called Enough. I've had enough. I'm pressing pause on the contracted self-improvement clause. This is enough. No more training. Goodbye to all routines of health that promise golden when I get there, which creep more distant as if by stealth. No more receding event horizon of fantasized and flawless me. I'm calling time on just keep going and ask, so what of where I could be? I've had enough. I'm pressing stop on the endless self-improvement shop. This is enough. No more racing onward to some never end. No more goal and no more hurry that leads nowhere but round the bend. No to ticking unticked boxes, yawning, empty, never filled, and no compulsive making most of all my time that's not yet killed. I've had enough. Time to delete benches that mark me incomplete. I am enough. Won't waste life scheming, preening, just to welcome death. No building up some perfect future just to die in when I'm out of breath. No more constantly reworking portrait brushstrokes that would recall a character who never was to unseeing eyes from my sepulchre wall. I've had enough, and will uninstall the system software that renders small, that invents flaws, creates distractions, and commodifies obsessive actions. No good intention as guilty verdict. I won't let my path become my cell. I won't let my tool become a weapon that keeps me subject in ritual hell. I won't let support become my fetter, nor comfort blankets smother me. I won't let guidelines be my jury. There are no rules can set me free. I've had enough. And so I'm running the executable file of the infinitely unfolding unknown into an expanse of creative, unrepeatable contingency. I've had enough. This is enough. Time to be as I am, enough. This is quite an old one. It's called A Plea from JL3570D. At age 16, by Royal Mail, a number I received. My heart it sunk. They've got me now, and I was not deceived. Chained into a system of taxes and of earning, the future yawned before me, the implications burning. Your assimilation is complete. Now learn and earn a wage. Some see this as empowering. I just saw a cage. It soon transpired that every act required me to be defined, pinned down and measured, the antithesis of free. A card for this, a pass for that, a username, a code. I must prove my identity to use the very road. You pin me down with reference tags, like a moth inside a case. I may not pass beyond these shores before an image of my face is securely pasted into a special little book that records the details of my birth, as well as how I look. And it was at birth this trap was sprung, as my father signed the form, defining me in syllables while the placenta was still warm. With your process and your system, I must define my very flesh. I am snared inside a database, just a digit in a mesh of social construct spread across a global nation, a myth by definition of a human fabrication. I could run Land's End to John O'Groats, then swim across the sea. The land and waves would not demand I prove that I am me. And this me will shift. This me will change. This I will flex and grow. Your world denies my place within this universal flow. My existence is an accident, a happy slip, a chance, an unexpected syncopation in this cosmologic dance. My place in time and form in space cannot be spreadsheeted, and when I'm dead, I will be gone, not just because I'm deleted. This ball of rock belongs to all of us, yet none. It is not your algorithm that drives it round the sun. It does not even notice us as far as I can see. I beg to just live on it without democracy. I've completely lost track of time. Have I got more time, Gönam? Help.
I think you could do a short one, and always the
Short
light
one.
That's okay.
Yes, or maybe I'll just read it really fast. So I'm going to finish on one called Guts. My body's not a hoarding for your latest ad campaign, a media visualization to fuel your gravy train. My form is not a battleground, nor politics' best tool in flesh applied as symbol for female supreme rule. My frame is not a vessel for your secret fantasy, a sexual opportunity or invite for misogyny. It's not a bearer of more children, destined just to breed, to churn out other bodies and further mouths to feed. It has no obligation to be or stay one size, and it should not be judged by any gap between its thighs. You don't tell me if it's injured or blossoming with health. I'm the one that's in it. I'll determine that myself. Regardless of the shape, this temporary meat is not simply filling space between my brain and feet. Its purpose is to let me see and feel the world, to facilitate awareness as my lifetime is unfurled. Its strength may trough and peak and change still more with age, but it's another precious resource, another laden page in the manual of existence, a thing that lets me be and learn and grow and flourish in response to all I see. So take back your expectations. I just don't need their weight to burden and to stop me or to fuel my own self-hate. Please disregard the labels that are hung upon my gender. I give back all those assumptions, addressed, return to sender. Hi, body. Nice to meet you. What shall we do today? Let's go and seek experience in our own private way. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Little Mouse. Fantastic as always. So our next headliner, Satyadaka. I know we were having some issues with you earlier. Hopefully, I think it looks like everything's stabilized, which is good. Excellent. Brilliant. So I'm very, very pleased to introduce Satyadaka. Feels like a bit of a coup to have you here today. So thank you very much for giving up your time and being here with us. Satyadaka was involved at the Croydon Buddhist Centre for 12 years from 1984 to 1996. He lived in the men's communities of Aryatara and Uttapala and worked in Hockney's restaurant. He was ordained in 1990 from Croydon at Guhyaloka. Since 1996, he has lived and worked in Norwich and been closely involved with the Norwich Buddhist Centre. He was the chair there for 8 years from 1998 to 2006 and still teaches there. Besides writing poetry and an autobiography called Everything That Arises, he is also interested in playing music and has recently been writing some songs. Another project of his has been translating German poetry into English. He has translated work by Rilke, Novalis, Heine, and most recently, Nikolai Kobus. He's very keen on practicing the arts within Triratna and as part of his Buddhist life, and is also involved in Wolf at the Door, writing workshops and retreats. So with great pleasure, I pass over to you, Satyadaka.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, well, I'm glad to be appearing visually because I thought for some of the evening that wouldn't be possible, and I hope it continues till the end of my reading. So it's good to be with you on Zoom. It's good to see the Croydon Centre again. I recognise that Rupa. That was one of the first Rupas I ever encountered in my Buddhist life. And my first poem is it's called Padmaraja's Raincoat. Padmaraja is a semi-mythical order member. He was one of the first order members I met. So I've just written, I wrote this poem for him and I'll read it now. Padmaraja's Raincoat. In his bodhisattva's raincoat, the transcendental private eye, he puts the continual questions. always the devil's advocate for God. In his bodhisattva's raincoat, he can come and go. In his bodhisattva's raincoat, did you know he gets headaches, has disturbed nights, catches cold? Only seen when seeing, he is always aware of you. His raincoat keeps him warm and keeps off the falling rain. And everywhere he goes, he makes the sunshine. So I was always very interested in the German poet Rilke, although I couldn't understand a word he wrote in German or English. But he's been a kind of koan for me all my adult life. And the first poem that I really liked by him was this one, and it's called The Apple Orchard. The Apple Orchard. Come with me just after sunset. See the evening green of the grassy earth. Is it not as if we'd gathered all of it and saved it up inside us from feeling and remembrance, new hope and half-forgotten joys, mixed with darkness from within us, to spread all out in thoughts before us, under trees like those by Dürer, bearing in well-ripened fruit, weight of 100 working days, serving full of patience, showing how what exceeds all scale of measure can still be lifted and surrendered, if you willingly, throughout long life, want one thing only, grow and keep silent. So I'm sorry that my image flickered briefly there. I'm glad to see I've returned in full focus. And this next poem is called Fruit for Michael Hamburger. Well, Michael Hamburger I met in Croydon back in those days when I worked there. He came to the Arts Centre, Independent Arts, and he gave 3 lectures on German literature. And I made his acquaintance then, and I followed up that acquaintance some years later, because he lived not far from here, from me here in Norwich. He lived in Suffolk, and I visited him, and he had an apple orchard, and he gave me a lot of apples. So I wrote this poem for him, Fruit for Michael Hamburger. Let me list the apples that you gave me. Bärlepsch, after a German count. Another, small, yellow-green, known as Crispin in England, but with a Japanese name, Mutsu. You'd find me later in a book. And those small, hard, crimson, with a taste some find too sour, from the tree you'd grown from an apple, given you by Ted Hughes from his garden. There was Belle de Boskoop, Dutch in origin, white, huge beyond known archetype to me, hard, good for winter. A Belgian, smaller, rather conical in shape. Still others, cousin of the English cocks, and one identified by red stripes on a yellow ground. No dream work, but well-ripened fruit, weight of 100 working days. So too the small and perfect yellow pear, hidden in the grass till deftly pocketed by you, from the pear tree raised from seed. So this next one, I wrote this on a solitary retreat in Cornwall, and it's based on a mythical happening that is still talked about in that part of the country. It's in fact one of the nearest village was called St Agnes, and that's named after one of the characters in this poem. So the poem is called Bolster and Agnes. This is a bit longer than the others. In Cornwall once there lived a giant who kept the land in thrall. Bolster was his given name. He wasn't liked at all. He ate the flocks, he ate the grain, he ate all he could get. He was a very greedy giant, scared everyone he met. One day he met a pretty girl, Agnes, she was called. He told her, go and fetch me food. But here he was forestalled. Be off at once, you greedy thing. I'll not fetch aught for you. There's nothing left in all the land because of what you do. She stared at him. She didn't care. She didn't show her fear. I don't know what to do, he said. She said, go away from here. Her eyes shone bright. Her mouth was firm. His lips formed in a kiss. He'd hardly met a girl before, and never one like this. He fell in love with her like that. What else was he to do? He went down on his knees to her and said he loved her true. You don't, she said. You're just a giant. You haven't got a heart. Prove to me you love me. Come, hurry up and start. Bolster scratched his head and stared. He couldn't say a thing. How to prove he loved her? He couldn't rhyme or sing. He hadn't got the knowledge. He'd never tried to learn. All he knew was stuffing his face and never waiting his turn. How do you know you love me, said Agnes, where she sat. I feel it in me blood, he said. What more do you want than that? Oh, nothing much, said Agnes, and pointed down in the mud. You see that hole in the ground there? Just fill it up with your blood. It was only a very small hollow, dug in the top of the cliff. Bolster laughed with a bellow and said he would fill it up if that would convince her he loved her. She said, why don't you try it and see? But fill it right up to the top, mind. She knew that he'd agree. He sat himself down by the hollow and cheerfully opened a vein. He poured enough of his blood out to fill it again and again. It seemed to take longer and longer. The hole never filled to the brim. I thought you said that you loved me, said Agnes, looking at him. I do, he gasped, like the sunset over the sea. That's how much I love you. That doesn't sound much to me. Bolster grew weaker and weaker. The hole had a hole in its side that led to an underground cavern, which emptied out with the tide. He fell in a faint on the cliff top, but saw with misted eye, as he looked out over the ocean with the sun still high in the sky, how the sea was red from east to west and all along the coast. I love you like the sunset. His was no idle boast. I love you like the sunset, he whispered as he died, while Agnes wept 2 shining tears, the first she'd ever cried. And still today in Chapel Porth, there's a cavern in the bay, its walls stained red with Bolster's blood before it flowed away. And I've actually been to that cave, and I spoke to someone who was selling coffee quite nearby in a little cubicle, and I said, oh, I've just come to look at this cave where Bolster's blood flowed away. I've heard the story, and the woman said, oh yes, Agnes, she was a very naughty girl. So this is a short poem. The man who gave you that old map. The man who gave you that old map. You see him sometimes in your dreams. He gives you clues that lead you further on. He doesn't smile. Perhaps he frightens you. Sometimes you hear a rumour he is bad and wrong, which doesn't help and really is a test. You keep on working anyway, and when it's going well, you get annoyed because he never smiles, until you notice how he doesn't frown when you are slow to learn. The clues keep coming when you think to look, and then you find you know the place by heart. You'd never go back now to where you were. One day, you wonder if you need the map, and pass it on to someone in the street who looked at you as though he wanted something. You dream in colour for a week. My father's lighter. My father's lighter that he marked mine is mine. I do not smoke. My father's lighter is a normal, old-fashioned silver lighter, but was an accomplice to a crime and got away with murder. My father's lighter is like an old army friend who remembers my father better than I do, though my father was never in the army. My father used to clean his lighter like a gun. He never went out without it. It was his compass, his key to the world, his introduction to strangers. It was the air he breathed. My father's lighter was always with him, and he left it behind where it lay through my long, confusing childhood in a forgotten corner of the sideboard. So I mentioned, or Gurnan mentioned in the introduction, that I've been writing some songs recently, but I've always wanted to write songs. And I've got lots and lots of books, great pile of them, about how to write songs. But until recently, I'd never written one. And then I think it was lockdown that did it, or just before lockdown, I suddenly got into it through collaborating with various other people, particularly with Savanda, who I live with. And we just started writing stuff. And we've written about 40 songs, I think, now. So these are meant to be songs, but I'm going to read them because this is a poetry evening. So the first one is called Wake Up. Sitting on the fence, nothing much to say. We don't feel a single thing. If we knew what we'd done when we looked at the sun, maybe we would cry. People walk the line, no one ever smiles, no one has the time to dream. It would not be so bad if we knew what we had. We could learn to fly. Wake up, we must be going. Wake up, let's take a chance. Wake up, the road is calling. Can't you hear? Don't you care? Mountain far away, shining in the light, wants to help us if we dare. Let's get out of this mess, not have any regrets when we come to die. And this one's called Now the Bully's You. And I made a tune for this, and I sent it to Dhamma Vijaya, who some of you will know. And he does stuff on GarageBand. He set it to music with a very sort of much better than I could have done it. And anyway, but I'm just going to recite it. Now the bully's you. This is a warning to all of us. You wake up every morning and think about your loss. You shout your latest warning. Neglect has made you cross. You think you've been mistreated. What are you going to do? You threatened, lied and cheated. Now the bully's you. The top's your destination. You live on planet Zog. You're just a big Alsatian. You hate the underdog. You think you've been mistreated. What are you going to do? You threatened, lied and cheated. Now the bully's you. You used to be a crier, but now you're butch and tough. To see the new Messiah, your mirror is enough. You think you've been mistreated. What are you going to do? You threatened, lied and cheated. Now the bully's you. So I'm just going to finish now with a prose piece. I hope it's permissible if I say that it's a prose poem. It's called The Journey, an Allegory. As a child, I lived in a mysterious landscape. The modern world seemed a kind of bubble floating on the medieval surface of the countryside. A battle was being fought between good and evil, but no one could tell me which was which or who was winning. It was my task to find out the story and make songs about it. When I grew up, I would be a minstrel, wandering from place to place, encountering knights and ladies, giants, ghosts, witches and warlocks. Time went by. I don't know why you have to go, said my mother. You won't find anything you haven't got already. I've given you everything you need, but you don't want it. So go on, go then, and don't come back until you've made something of yourself. I left behind the shell of my childhood, taking with me a guitar that was too quiet for anyone else to hear. I travelled away by train and bus. My journey then continued in the manner that can only occur when you live in one place. Repetitive and habitual walks, passing and repassing doorways you can never enter, entering and re-entering the doors that are open to you. I lived in an urban landscape of buildings whose use bore no relation to their meaning. Bingo halls in cinemas, casinos in churches, stables full of computer screens, blocks of flats inhabited by rabid dogs and empty beer cans. Amid the smell of petrol and exhaust fumes, smoke and cheap perfume. It was cold indoors and drizzling outdoors. One day I found a bookshop right next door. Was it always there? I'd never noticed it before. The first sentence in the first book I picked up said this: many people have mystical experiences, but don't realize that's what they are. I bought the book and left as quickly as possible without asking any questions. Every morning and evening for nearly a year, I read the book, although none of the rest of it made any sense to me at all, apart from this: study the obvious in great detail. I found a leaflet. It said, go to this address. I did so and soon moved to a place where everything was new, a new version of everything I'd ever known. All the smells, tastes and sensations were without previous associations. My study of the obvious became more intense. I had to be exact in all I did. No one expected anything but what was required. What was required was what I had to learn. I did not speak or think of the past or who I thought I used to be. I forgot my dreams, gave myself only to the claims of the day, stopped playing that silent guitar. I tried to become what was needed. This went on for a long time. Then everything changed. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Satyadaka. And I just want to say thank you very much to all the poets tonight. I think we've had a big treat of an evening, really. All the poets have been here in person and all the poets online. And I just invite everybody for another round of applause for everyone this evening.
Also, just stay there for a moment ago, just to say thank you very much to Gern for putting the whole thing together. You've done loads of work. You know, when you came to me a while back, oh, I'd like to do a poetry with Croydon Buddhist Centre. I had no idea.
Neither did I.
I didn't realise you had something this kind of big and ambitious and magical in mind. So yeah, thanks so much. Really kind of generous and put all this together, and again, really generous to all the poets to be here and to have shared your poetry and your view of the world, and also I think you've listened really generous as well. It's like a really generous, and just want you to thank you again for that. And so let me go around.
Thanks, everyone. And yeah, I'm passing over to Venture Group for final words of the evening. And yeah, very, very grateful to everyone that's come and given us their time today. Thank you.
That was my final word.
Oh, that was my final word.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everyone on Zoom.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're going to go out in the morning, so we could just leave. Thank you. Yeah, no, pleasure. It's really nice to come and it's amazing.
It's nice to have.
Yeah. That's right. So I quite like this sort of I think very very smoothly, very nice.
I think it's because we've already had this.